music has so much to teach us if we open ourselves to it and just listen.
Kraig, I've been enjoying your music for years, in the church and in the music building, all over.
It's very kind, thank you.
So how did you develop your musical interests, and how did Walla Walla contribute to that?
I started studying piano when I was 4. So, I mean, it's kind of always been around. I was playing the piano before I formally started studying, but that all started at least by the age of 4. And then when I was 6, I begged my folks to study violin. I had friends who were in an orchestra. So I remember being at one of their orchestra concerts and decided I wanted to try that. So from a very early time, I was involved in music. So I'm not sure how to say it started, because it's like it always was.
How did you, or when did you know that you wanted to be a church musician?
Well, I first played for a church service when I was 11, and then became a regular organist at the New Westminster Church in British Columbia as a high school student. And then also when I was in high school, I became the organist at the Holy Rosary Cathedral, the Catholic Cathedral in downtown Vancouver. So those were very interesting and pivotal experiences. All of that contributed to an interest. Throughout high school, I hadn't decided between violin and piano and organ. It was only when I came to college I decided finally to major in organ. And so that's kind of what moved me toward church music. But the thing I like about church music, your question, most importantly, I've got an intense interest in music and an interest in making good music. And the idea of being able to work my hardest to use all my talents to make a church service as meaningful and as beautiful as it could be, that I've always been interested in at the Holy Rosary Cathedral or at the New Westminster Church. And finally, in a career, to be able to do that in my own church, in my own denomination, that's one thing that makes working here at Walla Walla so special.
Yes. How did your doctoral studies influence your use of music, your understanding of worship, music and worship?
At the Eastman School of Music, I studied with David Craighead, an amazing man. And he and his wife, Marion Craighead, were both organists at major churches in Rochester. And watching them in their work, watching them how seriously they took their church work and the level at which they operated, impeccable musicians both. I can remember one day in an early lesson, he was demonstrating something. It was a difficult passage, and so I asked if he wanted to demonstrate, and so he sat on the organ bench. It was like the descriptions I've read of Bach, whose torso did not move when he performed. And that's exactly what happened with David Craighead. He was sitting very still. It was a very fast, difficult passage, and he was going like this. This music was pouring out of the organ, but I remember my first reaction was to look at him to see if he was asleep, because he was so calm, so relaxed, and there was so little motion. It was so efficient. So technique, I learned so much from him. And repertory and listening. But the thing perhaps most that I learned from David Craighead was what it means to be a good human being, He was a kind Christian gentleman. He was a superb teacher. And the combination of his godliness and his humility, his impeccable artistic credentials, and putting that together with kindness towards students, this was the kind of teacher I wanted to become. And so it was such an inspiration in my doctoral program. It was fantastic.
Much of your work is with Ikan Tori.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell us a bit about that, especially some of the tours you've taken?
I think a lot of people might misunderstand tours. Oh, you're going to go somewhere and you're going to perform for somebody. Tours are so much more than that. On a tour, the choir gets to know each other and bonds in a way that is not possible in other circumstances. Why is that important? Because in a group endeavor like choir, you have to depend on the person standing on your right and left. You have to trust the person standing on your right and your left. We typically rehearse a lot on tour, far more than we can just 1 hour a day when we're here on campus. So that it has every single time been my experience that at the end of the tour, the choir is singing at a far higher level than when we embarked on the tour. So growth musically, growth socially, and growth as an ensemble, I can't say enough good about it.
You just recently come from a sabbatical. What's it like?
Today's officially my fourth day back.
All right. What's it like to recharge your batteries? What did you find to light up your soul?
One reason I love College Place is because it's small. It's a handleable size. The whole Walla Walla Valley is. But for that very same reason, I think it's important to get out once in a while. And without a sabbatical, it's difficult to do that. But this gave me an opportunity to visit musicians in many different places out in the big, wide world, and to listen. I got to sit in on rehearsals of the Philadelphia Orchestra with their new conductor, Yannick Nézi-Séguin. He is fantastic. To see what musicians are doing at a high level, the Trinity College Choir in Cambridge, the Westminster Choir College in Princeton, New Jersey, Choral Arts Northwest, semi-professional choir in Seattle, working at such a high level, and to realize that what we aim for here in this little tiny place is in the same ballpark. To see where you fit in the world, in other words, and that what we're doing here is actually credible.
Now that you've had this experience of seeing the wide world in a new way, what keeps you at Walla Walla?
I have so much music yet that I want to make. So much literature on the organ and the harpsichord that I want to learn. So much choral music that I want to experience with my choirs. And we've got such good students here with which to do it. So the students are the reason I'm here and what keep me here, and getting to make music with them, it's very exciting. So that's what keeps me here.
Why does music matter?
I guess I can only say why it matters to me. I have had such a deep need of music since I was 4 and had to go play the piano even without instruction and just start doing it. And it fills a place that nothing else can fill. And especially when I combine that with my spiritual needs, it connects me to the divine in a way that nothing else can. And again, back to so many people talking about music, Martin Luther saying, "He who sings praise twice." Well, it's like the saying, greater than the sum of the parts. So that when we combine prayer and music, scripture and music, suddenly it becomes so much more than just the sum of the parts. When we combine all of that with other people, in other words, making music together, whether it's accompanying a singer or a violinist, or whether it's a whole choir singing together, that experience, for people who haven't sung in a choir, I'm so sad because they have not experienced what it is to be a part of a group all singing the same words with the same amazing harmonies. And it is an uplifting experience. It brings us to the divine. I think sometimes people have an erroneous view of what it means to study music in college. And it's something that I love talking to for instance, my organ students about. All of them eventually get to this conversation in which I say, all right, what are we really studying here? When you play the piano, is it your fingers we're teaching? Well, yeah, because you have to learn how to hold your hands, you have to learn how to touch the keys. Or how about playing the flute? Is it your fingers that we're focused on? Oh, in some ways, yes, absolutely. And the lips. But no, this is missing the point. It doesn't matter what instrument you study, the most important thing that we are working on teaching is the ear. The ear is the most important, no matter what the instrument is, even the human voice. The ear is what we're teaching. It's learning to listen. And in the same way, though technique is very important, I think sometimes there's a misunderstanding. When I teach an organ student, I'm not teaching a piece or a series of pieces. I'm teaching the student how to listen. I'm teaching the student what I want to teach. I want to teach the student how to listen. I want to teach the student how to think about music. I want to teach the student what questions to ask and how to go about answering. I want them to know, to learn how to go about answering those questions. I want them to learn how to look at a score and analyze it. I want them to learn how to practice. I want them to learn how to teach themselves so that by the time they're a senior, they don't need me. I've worked myself out of a job. And then by the time they graduate, they are only at the threshold of beginning to learn, and they can go on learning their entire life. That's what it means to get a musical education.
What does the best day look like for you?
It would start with having gotten a good amount of sleep, which isn't always the case in work here. But it would probably then start with an early morning practice session, whether it be at home on the harpsichord or the piano, or as is often my practice, coming to the church and spending 2 or 3 hours practicing the organ in the wee hours of the morning. You asked about my sabbatical. Going into this sabbatical, I was a little worried. I've never done this before, this sabbatical. And here I was looking at 6 months away from the classroom, away from my choirs, away from my organ students, away from campus. And I said to Julie, this is a little bit like a foretaste of retirement, kind of moving away from the campus. And my career has been so tied up with student involvement, I'm not sure how I'm going to react to this. I hope I can handle it. Well, the 6 months actually went very easily. I'm happy to say it went well. But I did have some withdrawals, and I'm eager to get back to students. So the perfect day would include probably a performance, because rehearsals are important, but they have to lead toward the sharing of a performance, because music just kept to yourself isn't yet really music. It's not communicating. It has to be given away and shared. So the perfect day would include a performance, maybe a church service, maybe a concert. But that would, I think, finish it off.
So, how would you describe the role of music performance, music education, pedagogy, all of that on a Christian campus?
I had a student, he did an organ major and a biophysics major, a double major. And after he graduated, he did a Fulbright, a year as a Fulbright scholar in Stockholm, Sweden, at the Karolinska Institute. His Fulbright mentor told him that he got the Fulbright in part, and maybe in large part, because of his organ study. And I cite him as an example that music is not just a good thing, but it can be pivotal to a career, even in a different field. The study of music can teach us not only the things I was describing before, self-possession and communication, but it can enhance other study. The university here has some taglines, 4 of them. And one of them is beauty and expression. Well, I always think immediately about music. Of course, it's not the only form of expression, but I think it's a pretty obvious answer to that, or factor in that. Beauty and expression, that's music. And faith in God is another one of those. I don't know of anything more satisfying than putting those 2 together, which is what I get to do every day with the wonderful students here at Walla Walla University. It's a good thing.